So that was recorded. Terrell here at San Diego Comic-Con with Matthew Margeson. How you doing?
Pretty good, my friend. How are you?
Oh man, another opportunity. I'm really glad and humbled that you had the time to sit with us today.
Yeah.
And as we talk about your musical adventures and the orchestration of our ears, and I see you had the Young Jedi Adventures.
Yeah, about to start that in a couple weeks, actually. It's going to be an interesting one, man. It's Star Wars' first kind of Star Wars' first show demographically aimed at like young kids,
yeah.
you know? So I've had a very, very minimal preliminary meetings about it, but I'm really interested to find out, you know, tonally, how are we going to do this with keeping that in mind, that, you know, how complicated, how adult are the themes that the story themes and also the musical themes, how complicated is the harmony that I'm going to be messing around with, you know. I'm interested to kind of discover it all in a couple months, couple weeks.
What brought you to the project? I mean, of course it's Star Wars. I feel like that's anything Star Wars you want to get your hands on.
Yeah, no, of course, man. And it's also as exciting it is. It's also rather daunting. I mean, look at the legacy before us, musically speaking. I mean, John Williams is like, you know.
Right.
But you know, I have a relationship with Disney Junior, and I've been doing another show for them for a while now, and you know, they're doing this thing with Lucasfilms, and they thought that I could be a good fit for the project. And so I wrote some music for it as just kind of a demo idea and sent it over to them, and they wanted to continue the conversations, and then that's just kind of how it happened.
Now, with this show in particular, I mean, I'm not sure how much detail you can go into it about it, but how much say do you get in where you get to put your music, like in a particular scene, or is it that they say, hey, we have this type of scene, and then can you put this here and you find...
That's a good question, which I don't have an answer for, but only because I don't know. But as a general principle, that's usually a conversation. That's usually... I'm allowed to express my opinion and say, like, hey, this, you know, and usually there's not really a disagreement on it. When we're going through a film or a television show, it's pretty obvious where music's needed to help tell the story, you know. The one thing I will say is that my experience with television animation is that it's usually pretty covered. It's usually pretty wall-to-wall music. So I'd be surprised if there's going to be a lot of scenes in Star Wars that I'm not scoring, especially because it's a kid-friendly animation. You would think it's like pretty much wall-to-wall, but we'll find out.
It's funny, like you say this particular project is aimed towards kids, but I've always thought, I mean, at least the demographic for Star Wars was always supposed to be children, but as you watch those movies, they're a little, I don't want to say dark, but like...
Some of them are quite dark.
Yeah.
It's interesting though. It's that classic. I mean, I know it's not exclusively 80s, but it's that very classic kind of Lucasy, Steven Spielbergy filmmaking style, where, like, take Indiana Jones for example. Because if you had never seen Indiana Jones, and I were to describe for you some of these scenes where he's in these Peruvian, you know, ruins in these temples, and there's a skeleton with a spike going through it. So it's dark stuff.
Right.
But the way that it's produced and the way that it's filmed, you're never really saying to yourself, is Indy gonna survive? You're saying to yourself, how is he gonna get it? You know it's gonna be fine. You know it's all gonna be good.
Right.
But it's that difference of like, oh, is he really gonna die? It's like, no, he's not. We all know he's not. But like, how's he gonna manage to get out of this one? You know.
Right.
It's a very kind of charming genre of action films that way. You know. So I know what you're saying with the Star Wars stuff, like. The first, especially the original three, man, there's some dark stuff in there, you know. But in a way, no matter what you're watching, you always have permission to kind of sit there and like eat your popcorn and you're excited by it.
Any projects on the table that you've been just ready to get your hands on to compose that you haven't yet been able to do?
Oh man,
I feel like that's a loaded question.
If you had asked me that 5-6 years ago, I would have said like it'd be really fun to work on a James Bond film.
Oh yeah.
But I wrote the music for the Kingsman franchise, which is kind of a close head nod to that kind of British espionage. Right. So I kind of was able to cross that off the bucket list. And then the same thing, man. I grew up on musicals, so I've loved I was always wanted to be involved in like song and, you know, more kind of Broadway genre-esque songs, and like I was able to work on Rocket Man a couple of years ago, and I'm doing a musical now for Sony called Lyle, Crocodile, working with some fantastic songwriters, Pasek and Paul. And so yeah, as far as stuff that I haven't been able to get my hands on yet, man, I don't know, maybe a period piece, maybe something that dates back like some sort of like Victorian, you know, 15th, 16th century. I don't know.
Like Abbott, I can't even pronounce the show. I won't say Abbott Alley, but
oh yeah, Downtown Abbey.
Downtown Abbey.
Yeah, something a bit like that, like it's really stylized, which would be cool. It's an interesting question, yeah, but gotta put food on the table, man.
Oh, absolutely. I understand. Definitely. I mean, like you mentioned the Kingsman series. Now you got all 3 of those movies.
Yeah.
That was like an exclusive like contract for you.
Well,
like,
no, that was just I co-wrote the first 2 with a colleague of mine that I had been working with for years named Henry Jackman, and he had worked with the director before that a couple times,
right.
and so had I actually, and we decided to do that one together, and we did the first 2 together, and then on the third one Henry was exclusively on something else, and so I co-wrote the third score with a dear friend of mine, Dominic Lewis, who was actually meant to be here today, but he went down with the COVID. But yeah, no, all 3 of those I had a big part in writing. Those are some fun movies.
Yeah, definitely. The action scenes, the music in that was amazing. Matthew, I definitely appreciate you for coming out, taking the time to sit here and do this interview with us. Thank you for coming to San Diego.
Yeah, it's a hoot here.
Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks.